yet. Got a lot of stuff. A little shorter, leaves more upright. I've got inbreds out there in that nursery that have leaves as much as 11 inches above the top of the tassel. We don't care about that, but hey, when we select high yield, we look to see what we have. These are kind of the traits we have. On the upright leaf thing, you get more square inches of sunlight exposed to surface area that way. And my guys in the transformation lab says, oh, we can insert a gene and we can make your corn all be like that. No. When a corn first comes up, those little plants, we want the leaves to flop out so we can catch more square inches of sunlight. Then up above the ear, we want the leaves to stand up. So you can clearly see they flopped out when they first came up a little to catch more area. Incidentally, this is all planted out here in our 2020 concept. We've left a row out between every set of hybrids just to make it easier to see the different hybrids and what we're doing. But this simply shows the type of cone. Now we'll switch from this tall corn and go down here and look at short corn. You thought I was kidding, huh?
That'd be that make life a lot better changing pivot tires.
Yeah. This is short corn. We make jokes. We've got some short people that work around here, and they don't even get lost out in this corn. A couple things. Assume for sake of discussion that we had a solid field of this corn and a solid field of that corn. Bottom 2 feet. You getting any sunlight over there out in the solid field? No. Is it alive? Is that stalk alive? Yeah. Okay, let me think. I spent my money to build a couple feet of stalk that's not contributing, but it's using energy. Would I do that on purpose or by mistake? You wouldn't do that on purpose, would you? Build something that was going to not contribute, but was going to steal from you? I mean, is this complicated? The reason the corn is that way is our grandfathers planted their corn checked. My son, I talked about check this spring. I blanked the look on his face. He had no idea what I was talking about. So they could cultivate it both directions because A, they had no herbicides. B, they had no tractors. They had to use their horses. So if you're using your horses and have to cultivate your corn from the time it comes up to the lay-by time, which means 5 times, 3 times one way and 2 times another way, you needed tall corn in order to capture the most square inches of sunlight. So they were doing things exactly right. We've switched to tractors that drive themselves. We've switched to corn. We've got genes we've inserted from some other place and more or less stayed with the horse and buggy type genetics. Does that make any sense at all? We've changed all of our technology except our genetics. I mean, I would suggest it doesn't. And the other thing, even now, occasionally people will drive by one of our fields and they say, that Harry, he must be totally crazy. Look at that corn. I drive by their field. They got it planted in rows about this wide, and they put the plants this close together. That guy must be crazy. You wouldn't do that on purpose, would you? Plant rows that far apart and then put your plants that close together? I don't think so. But anyway, this just shows the principle on that. This particular hybrid, though, isn't any good. Well, it's good this year. The reason it isn't any good, this is planted out here in the serpentine. So up there in that corner, we had 78-day corn. Down here in this other corner, we had 118-day corn. Once you got up to about 100-day corn there, everything out here flowered within a day or two. So that means all the 105, 10, and 15-day corn has a 5, 10, or 15-day longer fill period than most other corns, because most other corns, a late corn would flower late. Not so out here. And again, we didn't select for that. We selected for high yield, and this is what we got. But in addition to the long fill period, there's the sink between pollen shed and silking. Typical corn will start to shed pollen a day or two, and then the silks will come out. On our material, the tendency is the other way around. The silks will come out, and then a day or two later, it will start to shed pollen. When you plant densely and or have an extended dry period right at pollination, it delays silking. So if we didn't have genetics that silked ahead of the pollen, when we do get the delay, which we will get, when you plant heavy and or have dry, you would delay the silking enough when you get, that's why you get barren plants and really crummy yields under adverse conditions. The female in this silks about 2 days after it starts to shed pollen. Well, that's unacceptable for our program. It's doing fine this year, but if we planted it really thick and then had a stress, we'd have barren plants. And so we'll never sell this. We'll sell this type of hybrid, but not this particular hybrid. Any questions about that?
Are stills I can see having the ear that close to the ground is a problem to capture at all. Do you have any plan for that?
Excellent question. I get so confused from one group to the next, I forget what I'm talking about. Imagine what happens when those ears turn down. So, this kind of hybrid, the only way you're going to harvest it is with your draper table or soybean table. And we had the deer engineers out here because we said, hey, we work with them closely on planters and lots of stuff. We said, we may need to harvest all this corn with a draper table, and we want to make sure the engineering is right and will work. And I was particularly curious. I said, what happens when a guard just happens to hit exactly square in the middle of that plant and spear it? They said, well, tears it out by the roots, makes a big mess. And we've already covered that. Because if you look carefully at our guards now, they're short and stubby and rounded, so that won't happen. And I said, well, how about the amount of biomass separating area? They said, the separating area and the biomass is no problem. They said, the limiting factor when you try to do this is power. So you've got to have the biggest engine you can get on this particular combine because power is the limiting factor when you try to use it. And there's advantages and disadvantages to using the draper head. Obviously, if you're going to take this corn at 28% moisture, I would suggest those stalks are green enough that might not work real well. If you're going to do it on a frosty, soggy, foggy morning, it might not work just like your soybeans. It ain't going to work very well. The upside is, if you do have drier weather than what you planned on, and you get a bunch of spindly little ears, if you don't have your stripper plates in really tight, a bunch of those you're going to have shelling on the ground. With your draper table, you aren't going to lose a kernel. So there's pluses and minuses. And I have no idea if these hybrids are going to prevail or not. What's your closest town, sir?